Ashtatarashata Śrīmad Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Narayan Gosvāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Gurudev Ki Jai. Nityal Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Śrīmad Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Narayan Gosvāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Gurudev Ki Jai. Nityal Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Śrīmad Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Vaman Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai. Nityal Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Śrīmad Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Swāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nityal Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Śrīmad Śrīla Bhakti Prajñāna Keśava Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai. Nityal Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Śrīmad Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosvāmī Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nityal Vishnu Mahābhāgavatam Śrīla Gosvaras Babaji Mahārāja Ki Jai. Nityal Vishnu Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nityal Vishnu Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Mahārāja Ki Jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Pata Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shāra Gosvāmī Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gopashad Vrinda Ki Jai. Nama Chai Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Bhadatta Giriraj Mahārāja Ki Jai. Shri Radhakund Shamakund Ki Jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwara Mahadev Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Shri Kartik Vrat Ki Jai. Urja Vrat Ki Jai. Urjeshwari Shiva Shubhananandini Shrimati Radha Thakurani Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Shri Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Annakuta Mahotsav Ki Jai. Shri Govardhan Dharan Ki Jai. Shri Giridhari Krishna Kanaya Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Alright, so this is the latest I've ever started. I had to take a little nap though before I read, otherwise I'd be falling asleep throughout the whole reading. I went to sleep really late last night, 1 o'clock in the morning, and only slept about 3.5 hours. Alright, so I am going to share my full screen with you. First we're going to read there. Okay, so first we're going to read this article by my Param Gurudev, The Esoteric Meaning of Annakuta. And it's very short, and it's a supplementary thing, you know what I mean? Like this isn't telling the story of the lifting of Govardhan Hill and of Annakuta, but this is just a meaning of the word Annakuta. So you should definitely read more things about this day. But yeah, this is a really awesome thing. All right. So this appeared in English for the very first time. The Esoteric Meaning of Annakuta by Sri Śrīmad Bhakti Prajñāna Keśava Gosvāmī Mahārāja. In the year 1949, Sri Śrīmad Bhakti Prajñāna Keśava Gosvāmī Mahārāja, along with his godbrothers and disciples, observed Kartik Vrat in Ayodhya. On 22 October 1949, on the occasion of Annakuta Mahotsav, he delivered the following short discourse. There is a mantra in the Shruti that proclaims, Annam Vai Brahma. Food grain, Anna, is identical to the supreme transcendental entity, Brahma Vastu. One must realize the meaning of Shruti through Vidvad Rudhi Vritti, a profoundly learned understanding of its direct meaning. And there's a footnote here that says the meaning of Rudhi Vritti is direct or primary meaning. When this term is further qualified by the adjective Vidvad, learned, it becomes the esoteric direct meaning. Okay, Vivad Uruti Vritti. So one must realize the meaning of Shruti through Vivad Uruti Vritti, the Shastras, the scriptures. If we assume that this mantra, Annam by Brahma, simply indicates the superficial meaning of the word Anna, food grain, it will only intensify our tendency to enjoy this world and maintain our aversion to Krishna, which is typical of conditioned souls like us. Yeah, Anna means food grain. Or like in Bengal, when they're serving out the rice, they say Anna. So yeah, the ordinary meaning of Anna is food grain. But the food grain that is born out but the food grain Anna that is born of material nature can never be referred to as a transcendental substance, Brahma. Yet, the foodstuffs that are offered to Sri Hari are Brahma Vat Nirvikaram Hi Yata Vishnu Stataiva Tat. Like Brahma, devoid of any transformation, they are directly Sri Vishnu himself. The transcendental entity is certainly Brahma, and in its form as sound vibration, Shabda, it is received through the ears. For this reason, it is known... Oops, I forgot to turn on my headphones. Alright. Okay. So the transcendental entity is certainly Brahma, and in its form as sound vibration, Shabda, it is received through the ears. For this reason, it is known as Shabda Brahma. Similarly, in the term Anna Brahma, from the above mantra, Anna, food grain, can only truly mean Harikatha. For only Harikatha provides the soul with spiritual satisfaction and nourishment, dispelling the soul's hunger. If we accept transcendental Anna, or Harikatha, our soul will be enlivened as it blossoms into full maturity. This alone is the direct prasad, or mercy of Bhagavan. We can make it our aim to accept Harikatha as our true Bhagavat prasad. This Anna, in the form of Harikatha, is certainly the transcendental entity, Brahma, because Harikatha is directly Sri Hari. The perfect philosophical conclusions of the Vedic scriptures confirm that the meaning of the word Brahma exclusively refers to Lord Vishnu. The Mahārājas of previous times, along with our Guru Varga, caused the jubilation of Shri Shri Radha Govinda's senses, their go, to swell, vardhan, in ever novel ways, by making an Annakut, or a mountain of Anna, in the form of Harikatha. They have worshipped Shri Shri Radha Govinda in this way. Today, on the auspicious day of Shri Govardhan Puja and the Annakut Mahotsav, our sole activity is to glorify Shri Shri Radha Govinda. Shri Govardhan is the best of Shri Hari's servants, Hari Dasa Varya. Although Govardhan is Ashray Vigraha, the abode of love for Krishna, devotees see him as Vishay Vigraha, the object of that love, or Krishna himself. The Gandaki Śrīla, or Shalagram Śrīla, is directly worshipped as Sri Narayan. In the same way, the Govardhan Śrīla is worshipped as Krishna himself. Govardhan Dhari, Shri Krishna, the lifter of Govardhan mountain, and Govardhan are one and the same entity. Yet, that unmatched intense greed to please Krishna's senses, Go, known as Krishna Kam or Krishna Priti, which forever swells Vardhan to new heights, is indeed Govardhan. Instead of performing the worship of demigods like Indra or of demigoddesses, we must worship Govardhan in every way. These are truly the teachings of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Translated from Sri Gauriya Patrika, Year 1, Issue 10, 1949, by the Rays of the Harmonist team. Wasn't that cool? Where is that? The Mahārājas of previous times, along with our Guru Varga, caused the jubilation of Shri Shri Radha Govinda's senses, Go, to swell to Vardhan, in ever novel ways by making an Annakut, or a mountain of Anna in the form of Harikatha. They have worshipped Shri Radha Govinda in this way. Today, on the auspicious day of Shri Govardhan Puja and the Annakut Mahotsav, our sole activity is to glorify Shri Radha Govinda. So today, in all of our festivities and our doing abhishek and cooking lots of different items and offering, chapan bhog to Giriraj Govardhan, we must remember that the most important thing is not the physical. I mean, it is very important and very, we all of us do it. All of us Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we do make, a pile of rice and Annakut, a mountain of rice, a hill of rice. That's what it literally means. But even more important than that, our sole activity, as my Param Gurudev is saying here, is to glorify Shri Radha Govinda. So Harikatha, that is the most important thing. Because as Param Gurudev explained here, Anna, the deeper, the Vivad Rudhi Vritti, the more, the esoteric direct meaning of the word Anna, which literally means food grain, but the esoteric direct meaning is food grain nourishes the body, but Harikatha, which is Brahma, Anna Brahma, nourishes the soul. And there's Anna Brahma and Shabda Brahma. They're both Brahma. Anyhow, if you'd like to read this article again or anything, you can just search the esoteric meaning of Annakuta. Just type that out on Google and it will come up. Alright, so now I am going to start the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam reading. Yesterday I was supposed to finish chapter 9, but because of the internet problems, I wasn't able to read it. So, let me just open up the Mangalacharan. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad-Bhakti Vedanta Narayanati Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahakatara Ajuhavo Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Bhinedustang Sarva Bhuta Hridaya Munimanatosmi. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Shrinvatang Svakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Hridantasto Yabhadrani Vidunoti Suhritsatam. Nashta Praishvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Tavaivasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam. Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshai Kshiptashtakamaditaram Gamadhe Kripa Maitam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanaravindam. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right, so now we're going to verse 37. The day before yesterday we finished Chatushloki, and now we're going to finish off the rest of this chapter. But just as a little, what the heck? Just a little recap of this chapter 9, so that we know where we are. Answers by citing the Lord's version. So Brahma, he couldn't find his source at the beginning of creation, and he heard the words tapa, tapa. He was all by himself. He was just on this lotus flower, and everything was just black. Nobody, nothing. He was completely by himself. But then he heard these words, tapa, which means austerity. So, seeing nothing else to do, and hearing those words, he performed austerities. What happened? That's so strange. Anyhow, sorry, my screen just messed up. And so then, after performing tapa for 1,000 celestial years, then Brahma had darshan. The Lord bestowed darshan of Vaikuntha to him. And he not only just saw Vaikuntha planets, but he also saw the inhabitants of Vaikuntha. He saw the beauty and activities of the Lord, Lakshmi Devi and all their residents. And then Brahma was completely joyful and ecstatic. I'm just reading these words. So then the Lord shakes hands with Brahma. The Lord takes Brahma's hand and offers him a benediction. And the importance and ultimate benediction of penance. Then Brahma's reply. So then Brahma asked 4 questions. He asked the Lord to describe his material and spiritual forms. What are the Lord's different energies working? How are the Lord's different energies working? His pastimes and relations to his energies, and how he should do his duty of making the creation, but not have the false ego of being the doer, like that he is the creator of all this. How can he save himself from becoming puffed up and thus become bound to the material world? And so then, in answer to those 4 questions, the Lord speaks the Chatushloki, the 4 seed verses of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And so then, now we are going to read the rest of this chapter. Maybe we can read the Chatushloki also, just the translations of the Chatushloki. I think it starts with 33. These are really long purports. Okay. So aham evasam evagre nanyadyat sarasat param pascharaham yad etachcha yo vashishyeta somyaham. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who is existing before the creation, when there is nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. Rityartam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tad vidyadatmano mayam yata bhaso yata uttama. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. Yata mahanti bhutani bhuteshu cha cheshvanu pravishtanya pravishtani tata teshu nateshvaham. I really need to learn these verses. O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos, and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time I am outside of everything. Etarvad eva jigyasyam tattva jigyasunatmana anvaya vyatirekabhyam yat syat sarvatra sarvada. A person who is searching after the Supreme Absolute Truth, the Personality of Godhead, most certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. So those are the 4 seed verses, the Chatushloki of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. This is a very long purport. Alright, so this is where we read up to last time. Etan matam samatishta paramena samadhina bhavan kalpa vikalpeshu na vimuyati karhichit. Let me put this. That's easier in the eyes. O Brahma, just to follow this conclusion O Brahma, just to follow this conclusion by fixed concentration of mind, and just follow this conclusion by fixed concentration of mind, and no pride will disturb you, neither in the partial nor in the final devastation. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As in the Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, has summarized the whole text in 4 verses. Namely, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo, Bhagavad Gita 10:8, etc. So also in the same way, the complete Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam has also been summarized in 4 verses as Aham Evasa Evagre, etc. Thus, the secret purpose of the most important Bhagavat-tite conclusion has been explained by the original speaker of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and was also the original speaker of the Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. I like that, Bhagavat-tite. There are many grammarians and non-devotee material wranglers who have tried to present false interpretations of these 4 verses of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. But the Lord himself advised Brahmaji to not be deviated from the fixed conclusion the Lord had taught him. The Lord was the teacher of the nucleus of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam in 4 verses, and Brahma was the receiver of the knowledge. Misinterpretation of the word aham by the word jugglery of the impersonalists should not disturb the mind of the strict followers of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the text of the personality of Godhead, and his unalloyed devotees, who are also known as the Bhagavats, and any outsider should have no access to this confidential literature of devotional service. But unfortunately, impersonalists who have no relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead sometimes tries to interpret Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by his poor fund of knowledge in grammar and dry speculation. Therefore, the Lord warns Brahma, and through Brahma, all future devotees of the Lord and the disciplic section of Brahma, that one should never be misled by the conclusion of the so-called grammarians, or by other men with a poor fund of knowledge, but must always fix the mind properly via the parampara system. No one should try to give a new interpretation by dint of mundane knowledge. And the first step, therefore, in pursuance of the system of knowledge received by Brahma, is to approach a bona fide guru who is the representative of the Lord following the parampara system. No one should try to squeeze out his own meaning by imperfect mundane knowledge. The guru, or the bona fide spiritual master, is competent to teach the disciple in the right path with reference to the context of all authentic Vedic literature. He does not attempt to juggle the words to bewilder the student. The bona fide spiritual master, by his personal activities, teaches the disciple the principles of devotional service. Without personal service, one would go on speculating like the impersonalists and dry speculators life after life, and would be unable to reach the final conclusion. By following the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master in conjunction with the principles of revealed scriptures, the student will rise to the plane of complete knowledge, which will be exhibited by the development of detachment from the world of sense gratification. The mundane wranglers are surprised that one could detach himself from the world of sense gratification, and thus any attempt to be fixed in God realization appears to them to be mysticism. This detachment from the sensory world is called the Brahma Bhuta. This detachment from the sensory world is called the Brahma Bhuta, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 4:30-20, stage of realization, the preliminary stage of transcendental devotional life, para bhakti. The Brahma Bhuta stage of life is also known as the Atmaram stage, in which one is fully self-satisfied and does not hanker for the world of sense enjoyment. This stage of full satisfaction is the proper situation for understanding the transcendental knowledge of the personality of Godhead. The Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1:2-20 affirms this. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogyata bhagavat tattva vijnana mukta sangasya jayate. Thus, in the completely satisfied stage of life, exhibited by full detachment from the world of sense enjoyment as a result of performing devotional service, one can understand the science of God in the liberated stage. In this stage of full satisfaction and detachment from the sensory world, one can know the mystery of the science of God with all its confidential intricacies, and not by grammar or academic speculation. Because Brahma qualified himself for such reception, the Lord was pleased to disclose the purpose of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. This direct instruction by the Lord to any devotee who is detached from the world of sense gratification is possible, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Unto the devotees who are constantly engaged in the Lord's transcendental loving service, priti purvakam, the Lord, out of his causeless mercy upon the devotee, gives direct instructions so that the devotee may make accurate progress on the path returning home back to Godhead. One should not, therefore, try to understand these 4 verses of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by mental speculation. Rather, by direct perception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is able to know all about his abode Vaikuntha, as was seen and experienced by Brahmaji. Such Vaikuntha realization is possible by any devotee of the Lord situated in the transcendental position as a result of devotional service. In the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, Shruti, it is said, Gopa Vesho me Purusha Purustad Avirbha Bhuva. The Lord appeared before Brahma as a cowherd boy, that is, as the original personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, Govinda, who is later described by Brahmaji in his Brahma Samhita 5:29. Chintamani prakara sarma sukalpa vriksha laksha vriteshu surabhira vipalayantam Lakshmi sahasra shatasam brahma sevamanam Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Brahmaji desires to worship the original personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, who resides in the topmost Vaikuntha planet known as Goloka Vrindavan, where he is in the habit of keeping Surabhi cows as a cowherd boy, and where he is served by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune, the gopis, with love and respect. Therefore, Lord Shri Krishna is the original form of the Supreme Lord, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1.3.28. This is also clear from this instruction. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Lord Krishna, and not directly Narayan or the Purusha avatars, which are subsequent manifestations. Therefore, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam means consciousness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. And Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the sound representation of the Lord, as much as Bhagavad Gita is. Thus, the conclusion is that the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the science of the Lord, in which the Lord and his abode are perfectly realized. Shri Shuka Uvacha Sampradishyayvamajano Jananam Parameshtinam Pashyatastasya Rupam Narunadhari. Shukadeva Gosvāmī said to Mahārāja Parikshit, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, after being seen in its transcendental form, instructing Brahmaji, the leader of the living entities, disappeared. In this verse it is clearly mentioned that the Lord is Ajana, or the Supreme Person, and that he was showing his transcendental form, his Atmano Rupam, to Brahmaji while instructing him in the summarization of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam in 4 verses. He is Ajana, or the Supreme Person amongst Jananam, or all persons. All living entities are individual persons, and amongst all such persons, Lord Hari is supreme, as confirmed in the Shruti mantra, Nityo Nityananam Chetanas Chetananam, Kata Upanishad 2.2.13. So there is no place for impersonal features in the transcendental world, as there are impersonal features in the material world. Whenever there is Chetana, or knowledge, consciousness, the personal feature comes in. In the spiritual world, everything is full of knowledge, and therefore everything in the transcendental world, the land, the water, the tree, the mountain, the river, the man, the animal, the bird, everything is of the same quality, namely Chetana. And therefore everything there is individual and personal. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam gives us this information as the supreme Vedic literature, and it was personally instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to Brahmaji, so that the leader of the living entities might broadcast the message to all in the universe, in order to teach the supreme knowledge of Bhakti Yoga. Brahmaji, in his turn, instructed Narad, his beloved son, the same message of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and Narad, in his turn, taught the same to Vyasadeva, who again taught it to Shukadeva Gosvāmī. Through Shukadeva Gosvāmī's grace and by the mercy of Mahārāja Parikshit, we are all given Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam perpetually to learn the science of the absolute personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. I just really like this. I really like this point that so there's no place for impersonal features in the transcendental world, as there are impersonal features in the material world. Whenever there is Chetana, or knowledge, or consciousness, Chetana also means consciousness, the personal feature comes in. In the spiritual world, everything is full of consciousness, of knowledge. And therefore, everything in the transcendental world, the land, the water, the root, everything is of the same quality, conscious. And that's why we see in, just like during this month, Dam Bandhan Lila, we see that the milk was conscious. The milk actually thinks. The milk actually has feelings. The milk wanted to boil, wanted to give up its life in the fire because Mother Yashoda's she's in her breast is like the entire ocean of milk, and Krishna, his belly is like all the unlimited universes. So how could that little amount of milk be able to do any service to Krishna? And without service to Krishna, might as well just give up his life. And so we see the milk is conscious, and also the flowers in Yashoda's hair were also conscious. When Mother Yashoda was running to chase Krishna after, he broke the pot, then the flowers were following behind her, saying, "Don't worry, Yashoda, you are not alone. We're also with you. Go catch him, catch that." So And there's so many other examples like that, and how in Vraj, all the inanimate objects are fully conscious. They think, they feel, I mean, as in feelings, not as in by touch. Antarhitendriyartaya haraye vihitanjali sarvabhuta mayo vishvam sasarjedam sapurvavat. On the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is the object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of the devotees, Brahma, with folded hands, began to recreate the universe, full with living entities as it was previously. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is the object for fulfilling the senses of all living entities. Illusioned by glaring reflection of the external energy, the living entities worship the senses instead of engaging them properly in fulfilling the desires of the Supreme. In the Hari Bhakti Shuddhodaya 13.2, there is the following verse. Akshno palam ta drishagat darshanam hi tano palam tva drishagatra sangha jiva palam tva drishakirtanam hi sudurlabha bhagavata hi loke. O devotee of the Lord, the purpose of the visual sense is simply fulfilled by seeing you, and the touch of your body is the fulfillment of bodily touch. The tongue is meant for glorifying your qualities, because in this world a pure devotee of the Lord is very difficult to find. Originally, the senses of the living entity were awarded for this purpose, namely to engage them in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, or that of his devotees. But the conditioned souls, illusioned by the material energy, became captivated by sense enjoyment. Therefore, the whole process of God consciousness is meant to rectify the conditional activities of the senses and to re-engage them in the direct service of the Lord. Lord Brahma thus engaged his senses in the Lord by recreating the conditioned living entities to act as the recreated universe. This material universe is thus created and annihilated by the will of the Lord. It is created to give the conditioned soul a chance to act, to return home, back to Godhead, and servants like Brahmaji, Naraji, Vyasaji, and their company become busy with the same purpose of the Lord, to reclaim the conditioned souls from the field of sense gratification and return them to the normal stage of engaging the senses in service of the Lord. Instead of doing so, i.e. converting the actions of the senses, the impersonalists began to make the conditioned souls senseless, and the Lord also senseless. That is improper treatment for the conditioned souls. The diseased condition of the senses may be treated by curing the defect, but not uprooting the senses altogether. When there is some disease in the eyes may be cured to see properly. Plucking out the eye is no treatment. Similarly, the whole material disease is based on the process of sense gratification, and liberation from the diseased condition is re-engagement of the senses to see the beauty of the Lord, hear his glories, and act on his account. Thus Brahmaji created the universal activities again. Prajapatir dharmapatir ekada niyaman yaman Bhadram prajanamavichan atishtat svartakamyaya. Thus, once upon a time, the forefather of living entities and the father of religiousness, Lord Brahma, situated himself in acts of regulative principles, desiring self-interest for the welfare of all living entities. Purport. One cannot be situated in an exalted position without having undertaken a regulative life of rules and regulations. An unrestricted life of sense gratification is animal life. And Lord Brahma, in order to teach all concerned within the jurisdiction of his generations, taught the same principles of sense control for executing higher duties. He desired the welfare of all as servants of God, and anyone desiring the welfare of the members of his family and generations must conduct a moral religious life. The highest life of moral principles is to become a devotee of the Lord, because a pure devotee of the Lord has all the good qualities of the Lord. On the other hand, one who is not a devotee of the Lord, however qualified he may be in the mundane sense of the term, cannot be qualified with any good quality worthy of the name. The pure devotees of the Lord, like Brahma and persons in the chain of disciplic succession, do not do anything to instruct their subordinates without acting accordingly themselves. Tang narada priyatamo rikta dana manuvrata shushrushamana shilena prashrayena damena cha. Narad, the most dear of the inheritor sons of Brahma, always ready to serve his father, strictly follows the instructions of his father by his mannerly behavior, meekness, and sense control. Mayam vividisham vishnor mayeshasya mahamuni mahabhagavato rajan pitaram paryato shayat. Narad very much pleased his father and desired to know all about the energies of Vishnu, the master of all energies. For Narad was the greatest of all sages and greatest of all devotees, O king. Purport. Lord Brahma, being the creator of all living beings in the universe, is originally the father of several well-known sons, like Daksha, the Chatursanas, and Narad. And the three departments of human knowledge disseminated by the Vedas, namely fruit of work, karma-kanda, transcendental knowledge, jnana-kanda, and devotional service, upasana-kanda, Devarshi Narad inherited from his father Brahma devotional service, whereas Daksha inherited from his father fruit of work, and Sanak, Sanatan, etc. inherited from their father information about jnana-kanda, or transcendental knowledge. But out of them all, Narad is described here as the most beloved son of Brahma, because of good behavior, obedience, meekness, and readiness to render service unto the Father. And Narad is famous as the greatest of all sages because of his being the greatest of all devotees. Narad is the spiritual master of many famous devotees of the Lord, and he is the spiritual master of Prahlad, Dhruva, and Vyas, down to the forest animal hunter Kirat. His only business is to turn everyone to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Therefore, all of these features of Narad make him the dearmost son of his father, and all this is due to Narad's being a first-class devotee of the Lord. The devotees are always anxious to know more and more about the Supreme Lord, the master of all energies, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 10:9. Machita margata prana bodhayanta parasparam Katayantaśchamam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. The Supreme Lord is unlimited, and his energies are also unlimited. No one can know them completely. Brahmaji, being the greatest living entity within this universe, and being directly instructed by the Lord, must know more than anyone within this universe, although such knowledge may not be complete. Thus, it is the duty of everyone to ask about the unlimited Lord from the spiritual master in the disciplic succession of Brahma, which descends from Narad to Vyas, from Vyas to Shukadev, and so on. Tushtam nishamya pitaram lokanam prapita mahan devarshi paripat pracha bhavanya manu prichati. The great sage Narad also inquired in detail from his father Brahma, the great-grandfather of all the universe, after seeing him well satisfied. The process of understanding spiritual or transcendental knowledge from the realized person is not exactly like asking an ordinary question from the schoolmaster. The schoolmasters in the modern days are paid agents for giving some information, but the spiritual master is not a paid agent, nor can he impart instruction without being authorized. In the Bhagavad Gita 4:34, the process of understanding transcendental knowledge is directed as follows. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tatra darshinaha. Arjuna was advised to receive transcendental knowledge from the realized person by surrender, questions, and service. Receiving transcendental knowledge is not like exchanging dollars. Such knowledge has to be received by service to the spiritual master. As Brahmaji received the knowledge directly from the Lord by satisfying him fully, similarly, one who has to receive the transcendental knowledge from the spiritual master, one has to receive the transcendental knowledge from the spiritual master by satisfying him. The spiritual master's satisfaction is the means of assimilating transcendental knowledge. One cannot understand transcendental knowledge simply by becoming a grammarian. The Vedas declare, Shvetashvatar Upanishad 6.23, Yasya deve para bhaktir yata deve tata guru tasyaite katita hyarta prakashante mahatmana. Only unto one who has unflinching devotion to the Lord and to the spiritual master does transcendental knowledge become automatically revealed. Such relationship between the disciple and the spiritual master is eternal. One who is now the disciple is the next spiritual master. One who is now the disciple is the next spiritual master. And one cannot be a bona fide and authorized spiritual master unless one has been strictly obedient to his spiritual master. Brahmaji, as a disciple of the Supreme Lord, received the real knowledge and imparted it to his dear disciple Narad. And similarly, Narad, as spiritual master, handed over this knowledge to Vyas, and so on. Therefore, the so-called formal spiritual master and disciple are not, I don't know how to say that word, facsimiles? I don't know that word. Anyways, the meaning is Facts. Oh, it's facsimile. I don't know how to say this word. Anyways, it's an exact copy, especially of written or printed material. So therefore, the so-called formal spiritual master and disciple are not copies of Brahma and Narad, or Narad and Vyas. The relationship between Brahma and Narad is reality, while the so-called formality is the relation between the cheater and cheated. It is clearly mentioned herewith that Narad is not only well-behaved, meek and obedient, but also self-controlled. One who is not self-controlled, specifically in sex life, can become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. One must have disciplinary training in controlling speaking, anger, the tongue, the mind, the belly, and the genitals. One who has controlled all the particular senses mentioned above is called a Gosvāmī. Without becoming a Gosvāmī, one can become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. The so-called spiritual master without sense control is certainly the cheater, and the disciple of such a so-called spiritual master is the cheated. One should not think of Brahmaji as a dead great-grandfather, as we have experienced on this planet. He is the oldest great-grandfather, and he is still living, and Narad is also still living. The age of the inhabitants of the Brahmaloka planet is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. The inhabitants of this small planet Earth can hardly calculate even the duration of one day of Brahma. How many verses are in this chapter? 46. Okay, so 2 more. Tasma idam bhagavatam puranam dashalakshanam proktam bhagavata praha prita putraya bhutakrit. Thereupon, the supplementary Vedic literature, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which was described by the personality of Godhead and which contains 10 characteristics, was told with satisfaction by the father, Brahma, to his son, Narad. Purport. Although the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam was spoken in 4 verses, it had 10 characteristics, which will be explained in the next chapter. And in the 4 verses, it is first said that the Lord existed before the creation, and thus the beginning of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam includes the Vedanta aphorism Janma Dasya, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1.1.1. Janma Dasya is the beginning, yet the 4 verses in which it is said that the Lord is the root of everything that be, beginning from the creation up to the supreme abode of the Lord, naturally explain the 10 characteristics. One should not misunderstand by wrong interpretations that the Lord spoke only 4 verses and that therefore the rest of the 17,994 verses are useless. The 10 characteristics, as will be explained in the next chapter, require so many verses just to explain them properly. Brahmaji had also advised Narad previously that he should expand the idea he had heard from Brahmaji. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed this to Srila Rupa Gosvāmī in a nutshell. But the disciple Rupa Gosvāmī expanded this very elaborately, and the same subject was further expanded by Jiva Gosvāmī and even further by Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. We are just trying to follow in the footsteps of all these authorities. So Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is not like ordinary fiction or mundane literature. It is unlimited in strength, and however one may expand it according to one's own ability, Bhagavatam still cannot be finished by such expansion. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, being the sound representation of the Lord, is simultaneously explained in 4 verses and in 4 billion verses, all the same. Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswāmī Mahārāja ki jai. Nitya Vishnu Ashtara Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswāmī Mahārāja ki jai. Nitya Vishnu Ashtara Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Swāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Nitya Vishnu Mahabhagavat Śrīla Gokshara Babaji Mahārāja ki jai. Nitya Vishnu Śrīla Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Nitya Vishnu Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Mahārāja ki jai. Shri Rupinu Gauriya Guru Bhargava ki jai. Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Raghunath Shara Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Goparshad Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se ko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Vaja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishya Bharata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Radha Kunshama Kuni Munaganga Tosi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Shri Annakut Maha Mahotsav ki jai, Shri Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Shri Govardhan Dharan ki jai, Shri Giridhari Shri Krishna Chandra ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Okay, this is going to be a very quick reading because I should be in the temple room right now doing kirtan. As you can hear, the kirtan's just now starting. Hey, what happened to my screen? That is so bizarre, it just disappeared. Okay. Okay. So this is a class given in Badger, California, May 18th, 2003. Today, Annakut Mahotsav is a very auspicious day. This day is observed in India during the month of Kartik. Many of Krishna's other sweet pastimes were also performed in the month of Kartik. In this month, under the guidance of Nanda Baba, the Vrajvasis observed Govardhan Puja. They did this having given up the puja of Indradev, and that resulted in Krishna lifting Govardhan hill on his little finger. Yashoda Devi bound Krishna in this very month, which is now how the song Sri Damodarashtakam originated. Kartik is also the month in which Krishna and the gopis performed Sharadiya Ras, the autumn Ras Lila. After Krishna lifted Giri Govardhan, Indra understood that his torrential rain would have no effect, and thus he began to repent his actions. He thought that Krishna would punish him, and that the only way to save himself would be to take shelter of Surabhi cow. Surabhi would be able to please Krishna. She would pray to Krishna on his behalf. Please excuse him. No one else would be able to achieve this. Krishna considers himself the servant of the cows and always supports them. It would therefore be easy for Surabhi to please him. If Surabhi would not go, Krishna would not be pacified and would therefore punish him. Indra thus took shelter of Surabhi. Indra thus took shelter of Surabhi, walking behind her, and they both approached Krishna. Krishna said, "Oh, mother, you have come." Surabhi said, "Yes, I have brought my son with me. I request that you please excuse him." Surabhi then began to supply large quantities of milk, and Indra, the demigods, and the great sages present began to abhishek. They began to bathe Krishna, just as we did here today in Badger. Krishna then became very happy and said, "In the future, I don't want to have to tolerate your nonsense activities. For your own good, you should go to Navadip, and there, in the company of Surabhi, perform austerities. In that way, you will be excused." Indra thus understood that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's a picture of Govinda Kund. That's where Krishna was bathed, and he got the name Govinda from Indra. Up until the time of that Abhishek, Krishna was known as Yashodanandan and Nandanandan Krishna. Now, he would also be known as Govinda. Go indicates Gopa, Gopi, Go, cow, Govatsa, calf, and Veda. Krishna gives pleasure to all these Gos, and he also protects them. Therefore, his name is Govinda. Govinda and Govardhan are in the same line. He has the same duty, the same function as Giriraj Govardhan. Vardhan means to nourish. That's neat. Govinda and Govardhan, same, and the same line. Now our Govardhan Puja is completed. Giriraj is Krishna himself, and moreover, he has come from the heart of Radhika. He can fulfill our every desire very easily, and he can even give Krishna prem. He very rarely does so, but he can. We should also remember that the Annakut Mahotsav was also performed by Srila Madhavendra Puripad, as we saw in the drama play. Madhavendra Puri went to Vrajbhumi Vrindavan, and there he stayed on the banks of Govindakund at Govardhan. One day, after taking his bath, he sat beneath a tree on the banks of Govindakund. Krishna came there in the form of a cowherd boy and said to him, "Oh, why are you sitting here starving? No one starves here. My mother has sent some milk. Please drink it." Madhavendra Puri thought, "Throughout my entire life, I have never been attracted by any human, and especially to any lady. But now I am attracted to this boy. Who is he?
He took the milk and began to weep, his heart melting. Then he cried, "Oh, that cowherd boy was actually Krishna, and now he has left me." And he wept bitterly. In the last part of the night, Madhavendra Puri had a dream. In that dream, he saw that same boy, that very Gopal, come to him and say, "I have been here waiting in this bush for you for a very long time, and now you have come. I am feeling very hungry and very hot. Please make a temple for me and perform my Abhishek ceremony and Annakuta festival in which there is cooked rice that is stacked like a small mountain. So please make a temple for me, perform my Abhishek ceremony and Annakuta festival so that I shall feel satisfied." When Madhavendra Puri awoke, he fixed his mind on executing the order of the Lord. After his morning bath, he gathered some of the villagers, and together they went to the kunj where Gopal was waiting. And that kunj is still there today, nearby Govardhan. After clearing away the thick bushes, they very easily dug him out and took him to the top of Govardhan hill. They erected a throne from stones there, one piece for the seat and one to support him from behind. Then they began to worship him. Annakuta was performed for several months. Many wealthy persons from Mathura heard that Gopal had arrived, and they became very happy. They brought all types of paraphernalia such as gold, cloth, scents, and bhog. Cooking was performed for Thakurji daily, and for many months, lakhs and lakhs of people honored the Mahaprasad of Gopal at that place. After 2 years, Gopal came again in a dream to Madhavendra Puri and said, "I am satisfied by taking all of your offerings, but my body is still hot. Can you bring Malaya Chandan sandalwood from Jagannath Puri?" Thus, Madhavendra Puri once again set off to fulfill the desires of the Lord. We are very lucky to be in the line of Madhavendra Puri. Every year in the month of Kartik, we observe the Annakuta Mahotsav, festival of Giriraj Govardhan, and hundreds of devotees attend. There we worship Giriraj Govardhan himself, not one piece as Govardhan Śrīla. Actually, although a piece of Govardhan and Govardhan Hill himself are one, still Govardhan Hill and Vrindavan has a special glory. In Vrindavan, we worship Govardhan with many pounds, not only a little of milk, ghee, and yogurt, with many types of preparations, even more than here in Badger. I think in Badger we're making over 1,000 preparations every year at Annakuta. Many of you have been to our Kartik Rat and have personally seen this festival. We are fortunate to take part. We will continue to perform this festival every year, and we will do so until our life in this world is over. We cannot obtain pure bhakti without the mercy of Govardhan. Many sweet pastimes take place at Govardhan. For example, Srimati Radhika, Lalita, and Vishaka and the other gopis are on their way to the fire sacrifice of Bhaguri Rishi. During their journey, there is a discussion with Krishna. Krishna wants to check them and make them pay a toll tax. The gopis defeat him, and he has to apologize. There's so much history there, and it is all coming in our mind and hearts. Wherever you are, you can worship Giriraj by mind and pray. Krishna prasadena samasta shaila samrajam apnoti cha vairinopi sakrasya prapabalim sashakshar govardhano me tishitam abhishtam. May Govardhan Hill fulfill my deepest desire, to get darshan of Shri Radha and Krishna's Leelas. By Shri Krishna's mercy, Govardhan became the emperor of all mountains and received the offerings meant for Indra despite Indra's enmity. Yatraiva Krishna Rishabhanuputra Danam Grihitum Kalaham Vitene Shrute Spriha Yatra Mahatyatashi Govardhano me Tishatam Abhishtam. Demanding a road tax, Krishna quarreled for several hours at Dangati with the daughter of Vrishabhanu Mahārāja. Rasik Bhaktas visiting Govardhan are eager to listen to that sweet prem quarrel. May that Govardhan fulfill my desire that I can also hear that verbal battle. Govardhan Ashtakam, verse 3. These prayers will do as much for you as worshipping Govardhan himself, because there are many moods contained within them. Try to pray in this way. This is bhajan. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Alright, so that was very quick, but I need to go for the temple. As you can hear, probably outside, they're starting the program now. So I'm going to run for that. But I just wanted to read a little something. I was actually planning on reading this also, but then the kirtan started, and I shouldn't miss the whole temple program today. So, Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Giriraj Govardhan ki Jai, Shri Annakuta Maha Mahotsav ki Jai, Shri Madhavendra Puri Par ki Jai, Shri Giridhari Krishna Kanaya ki Jai, Shri Radha Damodar Ju ki Jai, Shri Rishabhanu Nandini Shrimati Radha Thakurani ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Shri Gurudev ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada ki Jai, Shri Guru Parampara ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Okay. Jai Hari Bol. Sorry, that was so quick. I wish I could read more, but there's just not enough time right now. So maybe I'll read again later after lunch or something. All right, Hari Bol.